Hey everyone, this is Andrew with another video from Made This 3D Printer. Today we'll be continuing our series on sketch constraints with the midpoint, concentric, and collinear tools. So as always, we'll start out making a sketch, hit our Create Sketch button, then select our top plane. We can select top of the view cube, take a look at it. Three that we're going to be working with today are midpoint, concentric, and collinear. So midpoint, I'm just going to start off drawing a few lines. So midpoint can be used in its simplest form, where you select two lines and do a midpoint, and it'll align the midpoint of each of those lines with the midpoint of the other. This is what happens if you select two lines, or if you select a line and an arc. This can't be done with a circle, but it can be done with an arc. So this will constrain the midpoint of the arc to the midpoint of the line, or the midpoint of the line to the midpoint of the line. So the other thing that you can do with it is have a line, and say you want to align this centered on this point here. You can select a line and a point and midpoint it. This also means that if you put another line out here, you can select this line and this point and midpoint it there. So now you have a line that is always centered across that point. A way that this can be useful is if you're aligning a rectangle. And a center rectangle can be good, but the beauty of a normal rectangle and a midpoint constraint is that to keep it centered, you only need one line instead of two crossing. So I hit X to set our line type to construction. Now I'll select, you'll see that it snaps to the midpoint here, and then it snaps to the midpoint there. I can then select this line and this point and do a midpoint. And now this entire rectangle is constrained on center there. Another way this can be used is that we can draw two rectangles. I'll make this one 50 by 100, and then I'll make this one to be 200 by 120. Now I want these two to be centered on each other. So a way that we can do this is draw a line from midpoint here to midpoint here, and another one from midpoint here to midpoint here, one in each axis. Now when we select this line and hit midpoint, it'll align the center points of the lines, because we selected two lines, and align these rectangles to be centered. We could then do the same thing with this point here to center the entire thing across our origin. So that's the midpoint tool. Now the concentric tool is exactly what it sounds like. If you have two circles or two arcs and you apply a concentric constraint, it'll make sure that their center points are aligned with each other. So now you can see that these circles are always concentric with each other. A way that this can be useful is, say we're drawing these two circles. I'll dimension this one to be 200 millimeters and this one to be 210. And I wanted to draw a couple of arcs coming off of this. Well, you have your 3-point arc tool. You select out here, and then you draw this arc on this line here, and you draw both of them. You can now apply a tangent constraint to each to make it tangent with the circle, but you'll see that they come apart from each other. So what I can do is apply a concentric constraint, and you'll see that both of them stay with each other and keep that same spacing all the way out across their length. So this can be useful both for curves and for circles. And the final one that we have is the Collinear Tool. This can be very useful for aligning two lines. So essentially, if you have a line and you have another line, it'll make them both collinear along the same line. The place that I tend to find this most useful is, say I'm drawing this shape here, just overall basic shape. I can apply coincident constraint here, I can apply a midpoint constraint here, and then I can apply a line across midpoint to midpoint and do it vertical, just like we did in the last episode. And then when I want these two to stay with each other, I could select these points and do a horizontal vertical, but that's not the best way of doing it when you're aligning two lines, because you have the collinear tool available to you. So we can select these two lines and hit collinear, and it'll keep them collinear with each other. This can be very handy when you want to cross-reference things on two opposite sides of a sketch and you want them to stay in line with each other. This is very handy for doing stuff like that. That's all I have for you today. Don't forget to like and subscribe to see future videos from Mantis 3D Printer, including more videos in the Sketch Constraint series. Thank you.